We all hope for good neighbours, people we can trust and become friends with. But not every neighbour is the friendly type. Moving into a new place can sometimes lead to something far more disturbing. Here are 3 terrifying true stories of neighbours who turned life into a nightmare. Story 1: The Boy Next Door. The very first story comes from a man who moved with his wife and 11-year-old son, Michael, to a new house in the suburbs. Everything seemed perfect at first. A beautiful home, quiet streets, and friendly neighbours. The father had always dreamed of living in a quiet neighbourhood. After years of hard work at a corporate bank job, he finally earned a promotion and transfer. The family left their cramped apartment in the city behind and moved to a spacious single-story home in the suburbs. For the first time, they had a backyard and a garage, and Michael even had a big basement to call his playroom. One day, while driving home from school with his father, Michael noticed a boy playing basketball by himself just a few houses down. His name was Tyler. Tyler was around Michael's age, but unlike Michael, Tyler always seemed to be alone. He was quiet and a bit shy, but soon enough, Michael and Tyler became friends. They played video games, rode bikes, and hung out like any other kids in the neighborhood. At first, Michael's parents were happy that he had found a friend in the new neighborhood, but over time, Michael seemed less excited to spend time with Tyler. He grew quieter, and whenever Tyler came over, Michael seemed nervous. His father didn't think much of it at first. Kids have ups and downs, right? But then, strange things began happening. It started with small things. Graffiti appeared on the garage door, and deep scratches were found near the back entrance, as if someone had tried to break in. The family installed a security camera, and one night it caught a boy sneaking around their yard. The father recognized it was Tyler. He spoke to Tyler's parents, but they were not ready to accept the fact, insisting he wouldn't do something like that. The tension between the families grew, and Michael's parents decided it was time to talk to their son. What Michael explained sent chills down their spines. He told them about the dark side of his friendship with Tyler. Tyler had done things no normal kid would do. He took Michael into the woods and played with the body of a dead animal he found abandoned. Worse, Tyler had once pulled a knife on Michael and told him if he ever told anyone, he would hurt him. Michael had been terrified and didn't know how to tell his parents. He had stopped hanging out with Tyler, but Tyler wouldn't leave him alone. He kept showing up, knocking on their door, and even sneaking into their backyard at night. One day, things took a terrifying turn. Michael's father came home from work early and found Tyler standing in their living room, holding a knife from their kitchen. Tyler claimed it was all just a joke, but his wild grin and cold, unsettling laughter made it clear this was no joke. The family immediately called the police, and Tyler was taken into custody. However, his parents still denied that he had done anything wrong, calling it a misunderstanding. After that incident, the family moved out of the neighborhood, not wanting to stay where their son had been threatened by someone who lived so close. Story 2: The Basement Brawlers. Our second story follows a young couple who were just starting their life together. After living with the wife's parents for a year, they finally saved up enough to get their apartment. They found a nice basement unit in a quiet house. The landlord mentioned that 2 men lived on the main floor, and a family lived on the second floor. The rent was affordable, and it seemed like the perfect place to start their new life. At first, things were great. The couple loved having their place. It wasn't too big, but it was enough for them. However, a few nights after they moved in, they started hearing strange sounds coming from the floor above. It sounded like heavy furniture being moved and loud voices arguing. Late one night, the noise was especially loud. It sounded like a serious argument. Furniture was being thrown around and someone was yelling angrily. The couple was about to call the police when they heard sirens outside. The police arrived, and shortly after, one of the upstairs neighbors, Chad, was led out of the house in handcuffs. The next day, the husband bumped into one of the upstairs neighbors, Louis. Louis was friendly and explained what had happened. He and his roommate, Chad, had gotten into a fight. According to Louis, Chad had attacked him with a knife. The husband was shocked, but Louis reassured him that things had calmed down and it wouldn't happen again, but that wasn't true. A few weeks later, the same thing happened. Another loud fight, more crashing noises, and the police showing up once again. Chad and Louis seemed to have a pattern of violent fights, and each time the police came, they would calm down, only for the fights to start again soon after. It became a regular occurrence. The couple would try to sleep, but the sounds of crashing furniture and shouting would wake them up. The police visits became so frequent that the couple knew the officers by name. One night, there was a frantic knock on the couple's door. When the husband opened it, Louis stood there, covered in blood, shaking. He begged them to call the police again, saying Chad had completely lost it this time. That was the final straw. The couple contacted their landlord the next day and explained the situation. Thankfully, the landlord was understanding and allowed them to break their lease. They moved out as quickly as they could. Story 3: The Stalker in the Shadows. Our final story is about a young man who moved into a cheap apartment in a run-down part of town. He was trying to save money while he went to school, and the rent was too good to pass up. The building was old, the walls creaked, and the floors were uneven, but it didn't bother him. It started soon after he moved in. One afternoon, while unpacking his things, the young man looked out his window and saw a man standing in the alley outside. The man was staring right at him, not moving, not blinking. The young man thought it was odd, but figured the man was just a neighbor passing by. But the man didn't just pass by. Over the next few days, the young man saw him everywhere. The man would stand outside the building, sometimes across the street, sometimes in the alley. He never said a word. He just stood there, staring. At night, the young man could feel eyes on him, even when he closed the curtains. The young man started feeling paranoid. He kept all his windows locked, made sure his door was bolted every night, and checked his surroundings every time he came home. But no matter what he did, the man was always there. It was like he never left. Sometimes the young man would see him out of the corner of his eye. One night, after working late, the young man returned home to find his apartment door slightly open. His heart rate rose as he stepped inside. Every room looked exactly as he had left it, but the sense of unease grew stronger. He couldn't prove the man had been inside, but he was certain he had. Unable to live in fear any longer, the young man packed his things and moved out. He never confronted the strange man, never even spoke to him. To this day, he doesn't know what the man wanted or why he was always there. Not all neighbors are friendly. Sometimes the people living next door can be the source of our worst nightmares. These stories remind us that we never truly know who might be watching us, just on the other side of the wall.